Hey guys, welcome to Blue Man 123. Hey, this is an audio book, and I just want to show you. But guess what? I'm reading Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, a collection of scary stories. Sorry it's not on Halloween. Curse YouTube schedule, but this is by Alvin Schwartz, and it's now a movie. My brother's seen it. Cool. But this is a collection of short stories. If you like one certain story and you want to hear it, I'm sorry. I'm just going to read them in order. But, this is going to be 3 parts. The first one, the second one, and the third book. As you can see, the first one has a crumbled scarecrow in it, and a haunted house behind it, and filled. So, creepy. And, next time I will show you the second one called More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Still a creepy image on it. But the creepiest image is part 3, which is Scary Stories 3, More Tales to Chill Your Bones. It has a picture of a spider coming out of someone's cheek. So, hey, want to get started? Let's get started. Part 1 of Collection 1. This chapter is filled with jump stories you can use to make your friends jump with fright. Number 1, the big toe. A boy was digging at the edge of a garden when he saw a big toe. He tried to pick it up, but it was stuck to something. So he gave it a good hard jerk, and it came off in his head. Then he heard something groan and scamper away. The boy took the toe into the kitchen and showed it to his mother. "It looks nice and plump," she said. "I'll put it in soup and we can have it for dinner." That night, his father carved the toe into 3 pieces, and they each got a piece. They went and did the dishes, and when it got dark, they went to bed. The boy fell asleep almost at once, but in the middle of the night, a sound awakened him. It was something out in the street. It was a voice, and it was calling to him. "Where is my toe?" it groaned. When the boy heard that, he got very scared, but he thought, "It doesn't know where I am. It will never find me." Then he heard the voice once more, only now it was closer. "Where is my toe?" it groaned. The boy pulled the blankets over his head and closed his eyes. "I'll go to sleep," he thought. "When I wake up, it will be gone." But soon he heard the back door open, and again he heard the voice. "Where is my toe?" it groaned. When the boy heard footsteps move through the kitchen into the dining room, into the living room, into the front hall, then slowly they climbed the steps. Closer and closer they came. Soon they were in the upstairs hall. Now they were outside the door. "Where is my toe?" the voice groaned. His door opened. Shaking with fear, he listened as the footsteps slowly moved through the dark toward his bed. Then he stopped. "Where is my toe?" the voice groaned. "You got it!" It says the end is you. At this point, pause and jump at the person next to you and shout, "You got it!" Yeah. The big toe also has another ending. When the boy hears the voice call for its toe, he finds a strange-looking creature up inside the chimney. The voice is so frightening he can't move. He just stands there and stares at it. Finally, he asks, "What you got such big eyes for?" And the creature answers, "To look you through and through." What you got such big claws for?" "To scratch up your grave." What you got so big mouth for?" "To swallow you whole." What you got so much deep for?" "To chop your bones." And it says, "I don't have a friend with me, so as It said as you give the last word, I pound someone your friends, but I don't have a friend, so. Yeah. Okay. Number 2, the walk. My uncle was walking down a lonely dirt road one day. He came upon a man who was also walking down that road. The man looked at my uncle, and my uncle looked at the man. The man was scared of my uncle, and my uncle was scared of that man. But they kept on walking, and it became dark. The man looked at my uncle, and my uncle looked at the man. The man was very scared of my uncle, and my uncle was very scared of that man. But they kept on walking, and they came to a big woods. It was getting darker, and the man looked at my uncle, and my uncle looked at the man. The man was really scared of my uncle, and my uncle was really scared of that man. But they kept on walking, and deep down into the woods they went. It was getting darker, and the man looked at my uncle, and my uncle looked at the man. The man was terrible scared of my uncle, and my uncle was terrible scared of... Ah! Did I get you? If not, I'm depressing. Okay, it said house room. I don't know why. Number 3. What do you come for? There was an old woman who lived all by herself, and she was very lonely, sitting in the kitchen one night. She said, "Oh, I wish I had some company." No sooner had she spoken than down the chimney tumbled 2 feet from which the flesh had rot. The old woman's eyes bulged with terror. Then 2 legs dropped to the hearts and attached themselves to the feet. Then the body tumbled down, and 2 arms and a man's head. As the old woman watched, the parts came together into a great gangly man. The man danced around and around the room. Faster and faster he went. Then he stopped and looked into her eyes. "What do you come for?" she asked in a small voice, and shivered and shook. "What do I come for?" he says. I come for you! Geesh, I hate doing this. It said, as he shouted the last word, stamp your foot and jump at someone nearby. Okay. Yeah! Guess I might have to do a blooper through. Oh! I fell out of my chair. You can't see. Okay. Number 4. Me Tai Do T Walker. There was a haunted house where every night a bloody head fell down the chimney. At least that's what people said. No one would stay there overnight. Then a rich man offered $200 to whoever would do it, and this boy said he would try if he could have his dog next to him. So it was all settled. The very next night, the boy went to the house with his dog. To make it more cheerful, he started a fire in the fireplace, and he waited in front of the fire and waited, and his dog waited with him. For a while, nothing happened, but a little after midnight, he heard someone sing softly, sadly off in the woods. The singing sounded something like this: "Me Tai Do T Walker." Not like Christmas carol. Okay. It's just someone singing, the boy told himself, but he was frightened. Then his dog answered the song. Softly and sadly it sang, "Ichi Kichi Kali Mali Dingo Dingo." The boy could not believe his ears. His dog had never uttered the word before. And a few minutes later, he heard the singing again. Now it was closer and louder, but the words were the same. "Me Tai Do T Walker." This time the boy tried to stop his dog from answering. He was afraid that whoever was singing would hear it and would come after them. But his dog paid no attention, and again it sang, "Inchi Kinchi Kali Mali Dingo Dingo." A half hour later, the boy heard the singing again. Now it was in the backyard, and the song was the same. "Me Tai Do T Walker." Again the boy tried to keep his dog quiet, but the dog sang louder than ever. "Lenchi Kinchi Kali Mali Dingo Dingo." Soon the boy heard the singing again. Now it was coming down the chimney. "Me Tai Do T Walker," the dog sang right back. "Lenchi Kinchi Kali Mali Dingo Dingo." Suddenly a bloody head fell out of the chimney and missed the fire and landed right next to the dog. The dog took one look and fell over, dead from fright. The head turned around and stared at the boy. Slowly it opened the mouth and... Ah! I don't think I'm ever going to get you guys. But, yeah. Okay, ooh, it's a song. Yay. Okay, no, this is sad. This... Well, okay, now, you will have to see me, sadly. Okay, real quick now. Okay, that was kind of embarrassing, but okay. Number 5, we have Old Woman, All Skin and Bone. Okay, I have to sing this. There was an old woman, all skin and bone, who lived near the graveyard all alone. I almost messed up graveyard, so I said grave. Ooh. She thought she'd go to church some way to hear the parson preach and pray. Ooh. And when she came to the church house still, she thought she might stop and rest a while. Ah. Ooh. But when she turned and looked around, she saw a corpse upon the ground. I'm making this not scary, sorry. Ooh. From its nose down to his chin, the worm grew out, and the worms crawled in. Ooh. The woman to the preacher said, "Shall I look like that when I am dead?" Ooh. The preacher to the woman said, "You look like that when you were dead." Ah! Yeah. Sorry, Shane. Okay. Okay, we finished that, chapter. Hey, now you don't have to do this, stuff. So you just have to be creeped out. To make things worse, I'm gonna, let's see. I need to find something. Okay. So, restart. Okay, now we're on the next chapter, which is he heard footsteps coming up the cellar stairs. I'm turning out the lights, and there's no jump scares, so yay. This chapter is all about ghosts. One comes back as a real person, another takes revenge on a murderer, and there are other strange happenings. Okay, now I'm going to restart the numbers. Number 1, The Thing. Ted Morden and Sam Miller were good friends. They spent a lot of time together. On this particular night, they were sitting on a fence near the post office talking about one thing and another. There was a field of turnips across the road. Suddenly, they saw something crawl out of the field and stand up. It looked like a man, but in the dark, it was hard to tell for sure. Then it was gone. But soon it appeared again. It walked halfway across the road, and then it turned around and went back into the field. Then it came out a third time and started toward them. By now Ted and Sam were scared, and they started running. But when they finally stopped, they decided they weren't being foolish. They weren't sure what had scared them, so they decided to go back and get a better look. Pretty soon they saw it, for it was coming to meet them. It was wearing black pants, a white shirt, and black suspenders. Sam said, "I'm going to try to touch it. Then we'll know if it's real." He walked up to it and peered into its face. It had bright, penetrating eyes sunk deep in its head. It looked like a skeleton. Ted took one look and screamed, and again he and Sam ran. But this time the skeleton followed them. When they got to Ted's house, they stood in the doorway and watched it. It stayed out in the road for a while, then it disappeared. A year later, Ted got sick and died. Toward the end, Sam sat up with him every night. The night Ted died, Sam said he just looked just like the skeleton. Okay, is that sad? I don't know. I guess it's creepy. Yeah, I'm gonna say creepy. Okay, number 2, cold as clay. A farmer had a daughter for whom he cared more than anything on earth. She fell in love with a farmhand named Jim, but the farmer did not think Jim was good enough for his daughter. To keep them apart, he sent her to live with her uncle on the other side of the country. Soon after she left, Jim got sick and he wasted away and died. Everyone said he died of a broken heart. The farmer felt so guilty about Jim's death. He could not tell to his daughter what had happened. She continued to think about Jim and the life they might have had together. Now, this is sad. One night, many weeks later, there was a knock on her uncle's door. When the girl opened the door, Jim was standing there. "Father asked me to get you," he said. "I came on his best horse." "Is there anything wrong?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. She packed a few things and they left. She rode behind him, clinging to his waist. Soon he complained of a headache. "It aches like something terrible," he told her. She put her hand on his forehead. "Why, you are as cold as clay," she said. "I hope you're not ill." And she wrapped her handkerchief around his head. They traveled so swiftly that in a few hours they reached the farm. The girl quickly dismounted and knocked on the door. Her father was startled to see her. "Did you send for me?" she asked. "No, I didn't." She turned to Jim, but he was gone, and so was the horse. They went to a stable to look for them. The horse was there, but it was covered with sweat and trembling with fear. But there was no sign of Jim. Terrified, her father told her the truth about Jim's death. Then he quickly went to see Jim's parents. They decided to open his grave. The corpse was in its coffin, but around its head they found the girl's handkerchief. Well, 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 what, well. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Hey, that was weird. Coming up at number 3, the White Wolf. The timber wolves around French Creek had gotten out of hand. There were so many wolves, the farmer could not stop them from killing their cattle and sheep. So the state put a bounty on them. They would pay a hunter $10 for every wolf pelt he turned in. A butcher in town named Bill Williams thought that was pretty good money. He stopped working as a butcher and started killing wolves. He was good at it. Every year he killed over 500 of them. That came to more than $5,000. It was quite a bit of money in those days. After 4 or 5 years, Bill had killed so many wolves that there were hardly any left in that area, so he retired, and he vowed never to harm another wolf because wolves had made him rich. Then one day a farmer had reported that a white wolf had killed 2 of his sheep. He had shot it and hit it, but bullets didn't have any effect. Soon that wolf was seen all over the countryside, killing and running, but nobody could stop it. One night it came into Bill's yard and killed his pet cow. Bill forgot about his decision never to harm another wolf. He went to the town the next morning and bought a young lamb for bait. He took it out into the hills and tied it to a tree. Then he backed off about 50 yards and he stayed down under another tree. With his gun in his lap, he waited. When Bill did not come back, his friends started looking for him. Finally, they found the lamb. It was still tied to a tree. It was hungry, but it was alive. Then he found Bill. He was still sitting against the other tree, but he was dead. His throat had been torn open. There was no sign of struggle. His gun hadn't been fired. There were no tracks in the soil around him. As for the white wolf, it was never seen again. Quick question. How'd he die? I know, maybe the wolf, killed him. But how did he not, shoot? Because that's you dummy. What? Did he, kill himself or something? What? And the wolf's never seen again. Did he, shoot the wolf and the wolf kills him? Why? Why did the wolf get... Why? Okay, coming up at number 4, we have the haunted house. One time a preacher went to see if he could put a haunt to rest at a house in a settlement. The house had been haunted for about 10 years. Several people had tried to stay there all night, but they would always get scared out by the haunt. So this preacher took his Bible and went to the house. He went on in, built himself a good fire, and lit a lamp. He sat there reading the Bible. Then just before midnight, he heard something starting up a cellar. walking back and forth, back and forth. It sounded like somebody was trying to scream, but got choked off. Then there was a lot of thrashing around and struggling, and finally everything got quiet. The old preacher stood up and took it. The old preacher took up his Bible again, but before he could start reading, he heard footsteps coming up the cellar stairs. He stayed back. He sat watching the door to the cellar, and the footsteps kept coming closer and closer. He saw the door not turn, and when the door began to open, he jumped up and hollered, "What do you want?" The door shut back easy like, and there was not a sound. There was not a sound. The preacher was trembling a little, but he finally opened the Bible and read a while. Then he got up and laid the book on his chair and went to mending the fire. The haunt started walking again, and step, 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 up the cellar stairs. The old preacher sat watching the door, saw the doorknob turn, and the door open. It looked like a young woman. He backed up and said, "Who are you? What do you want?" Oh, creepy picture here. The haunt sort of swayed like she didn't know what to do. Then she just faded out. The old preacher waited and waited. And when he didn't hear any more noises, he went over and shut the door. He was sweating and trembling all over, but he was a brave man, and he thought he'd be able to see it through. So he turned to his chair where he could be able to watch, and he sat down and waited. It wasn't long before he heard the haunt start up again, slowly. Step, 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 closer and closer, step, step, and it was right at the door. The preacher stood up and held his Bible out before him. Then the knob, that's supposed to be a cross, not a Bible. Then the knob slowly turned, and the door opened wide. This time the preacher spoke quite like he said, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, who are you and what do you want?" The haunt came right across the room, straight to him, and took a hold of his coat. It was a young woman about 20 years old. Her hair was torn and tangled, and the flesh was dropping off her face, so you could see the bones and parts of her teeth. She had no eyeball, but there were a sort of blue light way back in her eye sockets, and she had no nose to her face. Then she started talking. It sounded like her voice was coming and going with the wind, blowing it. She told how her lover had killed her for her money and buried her in the cellar. She said if the preacher would dig up her bones and bury her property properly, he could rest. Then she told him to take the joint of the little finger from her left hand and lay it in the collection plate at the next church meeting, and he'd find out who had murdered her. And she said, "If you come back here once more after that, you'll hear my voice at midnight, and I'll tell you where my money is hidden. You can give that to the church." The haunt sobbed like she was tired, and she sunk down toward the floor and was gone. The preacher found her bones and buried them in the graveyard. The next Sunday, the preacher put the finger bone in the collection plate, and when a third man happened to touch it, it stuck to his hand. The man jumped up and rubbed and scraped and tore at the bone, trying to get it off. And when he went to screaming like he was going crazy, he confessed to a murder, and they took him on to jail. After the man was hung, the preacher went back to that house one midnight, and the haunt's voice told him to dig under the hearthrug. He did, and he found a big sack of money, where that haunt had held on to his coat, the print of one of those bony fingers was buried right into the cloth. It never did come out. Ooh. Okay, back to normal. But seriously, that was really nice ghost. I mean, like, she had been murdered, and she did get him to confess and get killed. But he did kill her, so, yeah. Okay, number 5 this is The Guest. A young man and his wife were on a trip to visit his mother. Usually they arrived in time for supper, but they had gotten a late start, so now it was getting dark, and they decided to look for a place to stay overnight and go in the morning. Just cut off the road, and I thought someone was talking. Okay, right up. Just off the road, they saw a small house in the woods. "Maybe they rent rooms," the wife said. so they stopped to ask. An elderly man and woman came to the door. They didn't rent rooms, they said, but they'd be glad to have them stay overnight as a rest. I know something bad's going to happen. They had plenty of room, and they would have enjoyed the company. The old woman made coffee and brought out some cake, and the four of them talked for a while. Then the young couple were taken to their room. They again explained that they wanted to pay for this, but the old man said he would not accept any money. The young couple got up early the next morning before the host had awakened. On a table near the front door, they had left an envelope with some money in it for the room. Then they went on to the next town. They had stopped in a restaurant and had breakfast. When they told the owner where they had stayed, he was shocked. "That can't be," he said. "That house burned to the ground, and the man and woman who lived there died in the fire." The young couple did not believe it, so they went back to the house. Only now there wasn't no house. All they found was a burned-out shell. They stood staring at the ruins, trying to understand what happened. Then the woman screamed, and the rumble was a badly burned table, like the one they had seen by the front door. On the table was the envelope they had left that morning. Oh, wait! Oh, wait! Whoa! Yeah, Oh, whoa! Wow, that was freaky. I mean, like, that was really freaky. I mean, like, that was real freaky. I mean, like, I could die because it was freaky. I mean, like, that was that freaky. I mean, like, that was so freaky. I mean, like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What was that? Oh, yeah, I just forgot what it was about. Oh, yeah. Okay, chapter 3. They eat your eyes, they eat your nose. Good chapter. Oh no, I'm gonna have to do more singing. Okay. The Hare Song. Don't you ever laugh as the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet, from your head down to your feet. They put you in a big black box, and cover you with dirt and rocks. All goes well for about a week, then your coffin begins to leak. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out. The worms play pinobly something on your snout. They eat your eyes, they eat your nose, they eat jelly between your toes. Ew. Ew. Ugh. A big green worm with rolling eyes crawled in your stomach and out your eye. Your stomach turns a slimy green, and pus pours out like whipping cream. You spread it on a slice of bread, and that's when you eat when you are dead. Ew. 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 Oh, bruh. Ah. Oh. No. 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 Oh, yay. I'm talking about this next one. This is the second. Number 2 is The Girl Who Sewed on a Grave. Have you ever heard of The Ghost with the One Black Eye? Yeah, it was in a collection with this, and I really loved it, and I didn't know it was made by Alvin Schwartz. But, okay. Number 2 is The Girl Who Sewed on a Grave. Some boys and girls were at a party one night. There was a graveyard down the street, and they were talking about how scary it was. "Don't ever stand on a grave after dark," one of the boys said. "The person inside will grab you. They'll pull you under." "That's not true," one of the girls said. "It's just a superstition." "I'll give you $1 if you stand on a grave," said the boy. "A grave doesn't scare me," said the girl. "I'll do it right now." The boy handed her his knife. "Stick this knife in one of the graves," he said. "Then we'll know you were there." The graveyard was filled with shadows and was as quiet as death. There was nothing to be afraid of, the girl told herself, but she was scared anyway. She picked out a grave and stood on it, and quickly she bent over and plunked the knife into the soil. And she started to leave, but she couldn't get away. Something was holding her back. She tried a second time to leave, but she couldn't move. She was filled with terror. "Something has got me," she screamed, and she fell to the ground. When she didn't come back, the others went to look for her. They found her body sprawled across the grave. Without realizing it, she had plunged the knife through her skirt and had pinned her to the ground. It was only the knife that held her. She had died of fright. Well, let's see this picture. And now it's for Torn. Wait, for Torn? Okay. Now this, wow. This one's darker. I love the Mitai Do Walker. Mitai Do Walker. The wife wolf's confusing. Actually, I think the most nice ghost story was the Haunted House one, because freaking lips. But, well, that picture is haunting. One more time. Right. Oh, woof. Okay. Right after this commercial break, do you need ketchup? Well, I got some right here. Try the imaginary ketchup bottle. You need everything, 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 everything you can need. Even if I sound way to back, blah, 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 blue. Woo! Okay, let's go back to the Blue Man 1, 2, 3. Oh, thanks, John. Okay, next one. A new horse. Two farmhands shared a room. One slept at the back of the room, and the other slept near the door. After a while, the one who slept near the door began to feel very tired early in the day. His friend asked what was wrong. An awful thing happens every night, he said. A witch turns me into a horse and rides me all over the countryside. I'll sleep in your bed tonight, his friend said. We'll see what happens to me. About midnight, an old woman who lived nearby came into the room. She mumbled some strange words over the farmhand, and he found he couldn't move. Then she slipped a bridle onto him, and he turned into a horse. The next morning, The next thing he knew, she was riding him across the field at a breakneck speed, beating him to make him go even faster. Soon they came to a house where a party was going on. There was a lot of music and dancing. They were having a big time inside. She hitched him to a fence and went in. What kind of witch goes into a party? While she was gone, the farmhand rubbed against the fence until the bridle came off. Then he turned back into a human being. Then he went into the house and found the witch. He spoke those strange words over her, and with the bridle he turned her into a horse. Then he rode her to a blacksmith, and he had her fitted with horseshoes. After that, he rode her to the farm where she lived. I have a pretty good filly here, he told her husband. But, wait, what? Why does it say he told her husband? Mess up. She told her husband. He told her wife. His wife. But I need a stronger horse. Would you like to trade? The old man... Oh, he told the girl's husband. Okay. Would you like to trade? The old man looked over her, and he said he would do it. So they picked out another horse, and the farmhand rode away. Her husband led his new horse to the farm. He took off the bridle and went to hang it up, but when he came back, the new horse was gone. Instead, there stood his wife with horseshoes nailed to her hands and feet. Oh, I don't get this story. But, okay, so basically, this is what I'm getting. A man is being haunted by this witch who turns him into a horse. His roommate goes into his bed and gets turned into a horse. Then he rubs, there's a bridle, and she hitched him, she put him on a fence. He took it off, and then he turned her into a witch, a horse, and then went to the farm where the witch lived and traded a horse with her husband, and then her husband led his horse to his new horse who was born, and then boom. He took the bridle off, and then boom, it was dun dun dun. His wife! And his wife is dead because she's the waitress. Okay, I think this is number. Let me see. The new horse was. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, number 4. A young. It's called alligator. It's called alligators. But yeah. So number 4, alligator. Okay, number 4. We have alligators. A young woman in town married a man from another part of the country. He was a nice fellow and they got along pretty well together. There was only one problem. Every night he'd go swimming in the river. Sometimes he would be gone all night long, and she would complain how lonely she was. This couple had 2 young sons. As soon as the boys could walk, the father began to teach them how to swim, and when they got to be old enough, he took them swimming in the river at night. Often they would stay there all night long, and the young woman would stay home all by herself. After a while, she began to act in a strange way. At least, that is what the neighbors said. She told them that her husband was turning into an alligator, and that he was trying to turn the boys into alligators. Everybody told her there was nothing wrong with a man taking his son swimming. That was just a natural thing to do. And when it came to alligators, there just wasn't any nearby. Everybody knew that. Early one morning, the young woman came running into town from the direction of the river. She was soaking wet. She saw a big alligator and 2 little alligators had pulled her in and tried to get her to eat a raw fish. They were her husband and her sons, she said, and they wanted her to live with them, but she had gotten away. The doctor decided she had lost her mind, so he had her put in a hospital for a while. After that, nobody saw her husband, not husbands, that'd be weird, husband and boys again. They just disappeared. But now and then, a fisherman would tell about seeing alligators in the river at night. Usually it would be 1 alligator and 2 small ones, but people said they were just making it up. Everybody knows there aren't alligators around here. Ooh, I like that picture. Ooh, that's so scary. Look at that, look at those teeth. Ah! Okay, back to normal. Okay, number 5 is room for more. Well, room for one more. A man named Joseph Blackwell came to Philadelphia. How would I say that? On a business trip. He stayed with friends in the big house they owned outside the city. That night they had a good time visiting, but when Blackwell went to sleep, he tossed and turned, and he couldn't sleep. Sometimes during the night, he would hear a car turn into the driveway. He went to the window to see who it was arriving at such a late hour. In the moonlight, he saw long black ears full with people. The driver of the ears looked at him. When Blackwell saw his queer, hideous face, he shuddered. The driver called to him, "This is room for one more." Then he waited a minute or 2 and he drove off. In the morning, Blackwell told his friends what had happened. "You were dreaming," they said. "But I must have been," he said, "but it didn't seem like a dream." After breakfast, he went into Philadelphia. He spent the day high above the city in one of the new office buildings there. Late in the afternoon, he was waiting for an elevator to take him back down to the street. But when it arrived, it was very crowded. One of the passengers looked out and called him. "There's room for one more," he said. It was the driver of the hearse. "No thanks," said Blackwell. "I'll get the next one." The doors closed and the elevator started down. There was shrieking and screaming and then the sound of a crash. The elevator had fallen to the bottom of the shaft. Everyone aboard was killed. Ooh, he almost died. Well, okay, real quick. Why is there a picture? What? Okay, I'm not going to show you it, but there's a picture of a missing grave. It's kind of weird. Okay, I'm going to sip my hot chocolate. I have to get... I didn't get anything. I don't need it. Not yet. Okay. Number 6 is the Wendigo. A wealthy man wanted to go hunting in part of northern Canada where a few people had ever hunted. He traveled to a trading post and tried to find a guide to take him, but no one would do it. It was too dangerous, they said. Finally, he found an Indian who needed money badly, and he agreed to take him. The Indian's name was Defago. They made a camp in the snow near. Oh, snow! Right now, it's snowing a little. I mean, like, maybe not when you're watching this, but it's snowing a little right now because this is winter. Technically, not really right now, but it's a fall, but it's really cold. And tonight it's going to snow, maybe, probably. Okay, what else was I saying? Oh yeah, they made camp in the snow near a large frozen lake. For 3 days they hunted, but they had nothing to show for it. The third night, a windstorm came in. They lie in their tents, listening to the wind howling and the trees whipping back and forth. To see a storm better, the hunter opened the tent flap. What he saw startled him. There wasn't a breath of air stirring, and the trees were standing perfectly still. Yet he could hear the wind howling, and the more he listened, more it sounded as if it was calling Defago's name. Defago, it called. Defago! I must be losing my mind, the hunter thought. But Defago had gotten out of his sleeping bag. He was huddled in a corner of the tent, his head buried in his arms. What's all this about? The hunter asked. It's nothing, Defago said, but the wind continued to call him, and Defago began more tense and restless. Defago! It called. Defago! Suddenly he jumped to his feet and began to run from the tent. The hunter grabbed him and wrestled him to the ground. You can't leave me out here, the hunter shouted. Then the wind called again, and Defago. Oh, I thought you were saying something. Then the wind called again, and Defago broke loose and ran into the darkness. And the hunter could hear him screaming as he went. Again and again he cried, "Oh, my fiery feet! My burning feet of fire!" Then his voice faded away, and the wind died down. At daybreak, the hunter followed Defago's tracks in the snow. They went through the woods down towards the lake, and then out onto the ice. But he noticed something strange. The steps Defago had taken got longer and longer. They were so long no human being could have taken them. It was as if something had helped him to hurry away. The hunter followed the tracks out to the middle of the lake, but they disappeared. At first he thought that Defago had fallen through the ice, but there was no any hole. Then he thought that something had pulled him off the ice into the sky, but that made no sense. As he stood wondering what had happened, the wind picked up again. Soon it started howling as the night before. Then he heard Defago's voice. It was coming from above, and then he heard Defago screaming, "My fiery feet! My burning feet!" But there was nothing to be seen. Now the hunter wanted to leave that place as fast as he could. He went back to the camp and packed. Then he left some food for Defago, and he started out. Weeks later he reached civilization. The following year he went back to hunt in that area again. He went to the same trading post to look for a guide. The people there could not explain what had happened to Defago that night, but they had not seen him since then. "Maybe it's the Wendigo," one of them said, and he laughed. "It's supposed to come with the wind. It drags you along at great speed until your feet are burned away, and more of you than that. Then it carries you into the sky and drops you. It's just a crazy story, but that's what some of the Indians say." A few days later, the hunter was at the trading post again. An Indian came in and sat by the fire. He had a blanket wrapped against him, and he wore his hat so that you couldn't see his face. The hunter thought there was something familiar about him. He walked over and he asked, "Are you Defago?" The Indian didn't answer. "Do you know anything about him?" No answer. He began to wonder if something was wrong, if the man needed help, but he couldn't see his face. "Are you all right?" he asked. No answer. To get a look at him, he lifted the Indian's hat. Then he screamed. There was nothing under the hat but a pile of ashes. Woo! Woo! Ow! Ow! Gee, ma! Woo! 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 Wow, that was crazy. I like Defago. He's just like, "Oh, my feet are burning, my feet are burning." Yeah, my feet are burning. You know my feet are burning? Okay. Okay. Woo. So, moving on is number 6, A Dead Man's Brain. Woo. Okay. This scary story is a scary game that people play at Halloween, but it can't be playing whenever the spirit moves you. The players sit in a circle in a darkened room and listen to a storyteller describe the rotting remains of a corpse. Each part is passed around for them to fill. In one version, a player is out if he or she screams or gasps what's right. In another version, everybody stays to the end, no matter how scared they get. Here's the story. Once in this town, there lived a man named Brown, and it was years ago on this night that he was murdered out of spite. Hey, this remains. No, this is rhyming. We have here his remains. First, let's fill his brains. A wet, squishy tomato. That's what they use. Now here are his eyes, still frozen with surprise. 2 peeled grapes. This is his nose, a chicken bone. Here's his ear, a dried apricot. And here's his hand, rotting flesh and bone. A cloth or rubber glove filled with mud or ice. But his hair still grows. A handful of corn, silk, or wet fur are gone. And his heart still beats now and then, a piece of raw liver. And his blood still flows. Dip your fingers in it, it's nice and warm. A bowl of catsup thinned with warm water. That is all there is, except for these worms. They are the ones that eat the rest of him. A handful of wet cooked spaghetti noodles. Ew! 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 I actually kind of want to play that. It's like the first Halloween game I've heard of that isn't cooked. Okay. Number 7. May I carry your basket? Aw, it's very polite. No, you can't. You can never. I don't know why. Okay, Sam Lewis spent the evening playing chess at his friend's house. It was about midnight when they finished their game, and as he started home, outside it was icy cold and quiet as the grave. As he came around to turn the road, he was surprised to see a woman walking ahead of him. She was carrying a basket covered with white cloth. When he was caught up to her, he looked to see who it was, but she was so bundled up against the cold it was hard to see her face. Good evening, Sam said. What brings you out here so late? But she didn't answer. When he said, May I carry your basket? She handed it to him. From under her cloth, a small voice said, That's very nice of you. That was followed by wild laughter. I think it might go like this. Sam was so startled he dropped the basket, and out rolled the woman's head. He looked at the head and he stared at the woman. It's her head, he cried, and he started to run, and the woman and her head began to chase him. Soon the head caught up to him. It bounded into the air and sunk its teeth into his left leg. Sam screamed with pain and ran faster, but the woman and her head stayed right behind. Soon the head leaped in the air again and bit into his other leg. They were gone. Ooh. Well, that's disturbing. Okay. Actually, they eat your eyes and your nose. Yeah, but now we're going to do the thing that haunts my dreams. I'm joking. But it's called Chapter 4, Other Dangers. Most of the scary stories in this book have been passed down over the years, but the one in this chapter, have been told only in recent times. They're stories that young people often tell about dangers we face in our lives today. Ooh, number 1, The Hook. I know this one. Donna and Sarah went to the movies. They went for a ride in Donald's car. They parked up on a hill at the edge of the town. From there, they could see the lights up and down the valley. Donald turned on the radio and found some music, but an announcer broke in with a news bulletin. A murderer had escaped from the state prison. He was armed with a knife and was headed south on foot. His left hand was missing. In its place, he wore a hook. Let's roll up the windows and lock the door, said Sarah. That's a good idea, said Donald. That prison isn't too far away, said Sarah. Maybe we should really go home. But it's only 10 o'clock. said Donald. I don't care what time it is, she said. I want to go home. Look, Sarah, said Donald. He's not going to climb all the way up here. Why would he do that? Even if he did, all the doors are locked. How could he get in? Donald, he could take that hook and break through the window and open the door. She said, I'm scared. I want to go home. Donald was annoyed. The girl is always afraid of something, he said. As he started the car, Sarah thought she heard someone or something scratching at her door. Did you hear that? She asked as they roared away. It sounded like somebody was trying to get in. Oh, sure, said Donald. Soon they got to her house. Would you like to come in and have some cocoa? She asked. No, he said. I've got to go home. He went around to the other side of the car to let her out. Hanging on the door handle was a hook. Well, that's stupid. Not like the story. The story was okay. But that's stupid. I mean, like, sorry, I'm not trying to be mean. But that's kind of dumb. Because, like, guess what? It's just kind of stupid of that guy to just leave his hook there. That was his only weapon. Well, can't be all... Okay. Number 2, the white satin evening gown. I've naturally not heard this. A young man invited a young woman to a formal dance, but she was very poor, and she could not afford to buy the evening gown she needed for such an occasion. Maybe you can rent a dress, her mother said. So she went to a pawn shop not too far from where she lived. There she found a white satin evening gown in her size. She looked lovely in it, and she was able to rent it for very little. When she arrived at the dance with her friends, she was so attractive everyone wanted to meet her. She danced again and again and was having a wonderful time. Then she began to feel dizzy and faint, and she asked her friend to take her home. I think I've danced too much, she told him. When she got home, she lay down on her bed. The next morning, her mother found that her daughter had died. The doctor could not understand what had caused her death, so he had the coroner perform an autopsy. The coroner found that she had been poisoned by embalming fluid. It had stopped her blood from flowing. There were traces of the fluid on her dress. He decided that it had entered her skin when she perspired while she was dancing. The broker said he bought the dress from an undertaker's helper. It had been used in a funeral for another young woman, and the helper had just stolen it before she was buried. Well, of course you're gonna die. It's a dead person. Don't take dresses from a dead person. That's a crazy loco. Okay, I have heard of this one. Number 3, high beams. The girl driving the old blue sedan was a senior at the high school. She lived on a farm about 8 miles away and used the car to drive back and forth. She had driven into town that night to see a basketball game. Now she was on her way home. As she pulled away from the school, she noticed a big pickup truck follow her out of the parking lot. A few minutes later, the truck was still behind her. Guess we're going in the same direction, she thought. She began to watch her truck in her mirror. When she had changed her speed, the driver of the truck changed his speed. When she passed the car, so did he. Then he turned on his high beams, flooding her car with light. He left them on for almost a minute. He probably wants to pass me, she thought, but she was becoming uneasy. Usually she drove home over a back road. Not too many people went that way, but when she turned onto that road, so did the truck. I gotta get away from him, she thought, and she began to drive faster. Then he turned his eye beams on again. How they know it's a boy? After a minute, he turned them off. Then he turned them on again and off again, as she drove even faster. But the truck driver stayed right behind her. Then he turned his eye beams on again. Once more, her car was ablaze with light. What is he doing? She wondered. What does he want? Then he turned them off again. But a minute later, he had them on again, and he left them on. At last, she pulled into her driveway, and the truck pulled in right behind her. She jumped from the car and ran to the house. Call the police, she screamed at her father. Out on the driveway, she could hear the driver of the truck. He had a gun in his hand. When the police arrived, they started to arrest him, but he pointed to the girl's car. You don't want me, you want him, he said. Crouched behind the driver's seat, there was a man with a knife. As the driver of the truck explained it, the man slipped into the girl's car just before she left school. He saw it happen, but there was no way he could stop it. He thought about getting the police, but he was afraid to leave her, so he followed her car. Each time the man in the back seat reached over to overpower her, the driver of the truck turned on his high beams. Then the man dropped down, afraid that someone might see him. He's smart. Like, actually, yeah, he's smart. If you don't want someone to die, then follow them. And what? I don't get how I got everything. But it's different than the story I thought it would be. Okay. Actually, no, it's not. Okay. Number 3 is The Babysitter. I know this one. It was 9 o'clock in the evening. Everyone was sitting on the couch in front of the TV. There were Richard, Brian, Ginny, and Doreen, the babysitter. The telephone rang. "Baby's your mother," said Doreen. She picked up the phone. Before she could say a word, a man laughed hysterically and hung up. "Who is it?" asked Richard. "Some nut," said Doreen. "What did I miss?" At 9:30, the telephone rang again. Doreen answered it. It was the same man who called before. "I'll be there soon," he said, and he laughed and hung up. "Who was it?" the children asked. "Some crazy person," she said. About 10 o'clock, the telephone rang again. Jenny got up to answer it. "Hello," she said. It was the same man. "One more hour," he said, and he laughed and hung up. He said, "1 more hour. What does he mean?" asked Jenny. "Don't worry," said Doreen. "It's somebody fooling around." "I'm scared," said Jenny. About 10:30, the telephone rang once more. When Doreen picked it up, the man said, "Pretty soon now," and she laughed. "Why are you doing this?" Doreen screamed, and he hung up. Was it the guy again?" asked Brian. "Yes," said Doreen. "I'm going to call the operator and complain." The operator told her to call back if it happened again, and he tried to trace the call. At 11 o'clock, the telephone rang again. Doreen answered it. "Very soon now," the man said, and he laughed and hung up. Doreen called the operator. Almost at once, she called back. "The person is calling from a upstairs," she said. "You better leave. I'll get the police." Just then a door upstairs opened. A man they had never seen before started down the stairs toward them. As they ran from the house, he was smiling in a very strange way. A few minutes later, the police found him there and arrested him. Ah! Whoa, whoa, whoa! That was not okay. That was just mean. That's scary. That's so scary. Oh my god. Actually, this is so scary. Let's go on to... Yeah, it's basically kind of... It's like the same name as the first one, but it's funny stories. Okay, I'll explain it. This chapter has the same title as the first chapter, but the stories in the first chapter are meant to scare you. This one are meant to make you laugh. Okay. Chapter 1, The Viper. A widow lived alone in the top floor of an apartment house. One morning, her telephone rang. "Hello," she said. "This is the Viper," a man said. "I'm coming up." "Somebody's fooling around," she thought, and hung up. A half hour later, the telephone rang again. This is a copy of the babysitter. It was the same man. "It's the Viper," he said. "I'll be up soon." The widow didn't know what to think, but she was getting frightened. One more, the telephone rang. Again, it was the Viper. "I'm coming up now," he said. She quickly called the police. They said they would be right over. When the doorbell rang, she sighed with relief. "They are here," she thought. When she opened the door, there's the little old man with a bucket and the cloth. "I am the Viper," he said. I wish to wash and wipe the windows." I get it. He's a wiper, not the Viper. Oh, that's funny. Once you get it. Okay. Number 2, the attic. A man named Rupert lived with his dog in a house deep in the woods. Rupert was a hunter and a trapper. The dog was a big German shepherd named Sam. Rupert had Sam raised from a pup. Almost every morning, Rupert went hunting, and Sam stayed behind and guarded the house. One morning, as Rupert was checking his traps, he got the feeling that something was wrong at home. He hurried back as fast as he could, but when he got there, he found that Sam was missing. He searched the house and the woods nearby, but Sam was not there. He searched the house and He called and he called, but the dog did not answer. For days Herbert looked for Sam, but he could find no trace of him. Finally he gave up and went back to his work. But one morning he heard something moving in the attic. He picked up his gun. Then he thought, I'd better be quiet about this. So he took off his boots, and his bare feet began to climb the attic stairs. He slowly took one step, then another, then another. At last he reached the attic door. He stood outside listening, but he didn't hear a thing. Then he opened the door and ah! That was not supposed to be a jump scare. Okay. Okay, next one. Actually, you might be wondering why he screamed, ah. Well, you'd scream too if you stepped on a nail on your bare feet. Yeah, that was a joke. Okay, number 3, the Slithery D. The Slippery D, he came out of the sea. He ate all the others, but he didn't eat me. Slithery D, he came out of the seas. He ate all the others, but he didn't eat slurp. Well, we just ate you. Aaron Kelly's bones. Aaron Kelly was dead. They bought him a coffin and had a funeral and buried him. But that night he got out of his coffin and he came home. His family was sitting around the fire when he walked in. He sat next to a window and he said, "What's going on? You act like somebody died. Who's dead?" His widow said, "You are. I don't feel dead." He said, "I feel fine." "You don't look fine," his widow said. "You look dead. You better get back to the grave where you belong." "I'm not going to go back to the grave until I feel dead," he said. Since Harry wouldn't go back, his widow couldn't collect his life service. Without that, she couldn't pay for the coffin, and the undertaker said he would take it back. Aaron didn't care. He sat by the fire, rocking in a chair and warming his hands and feet, but his joints were dry and his back was stiff, and every time he moved, he creaked and cracked. One night, his best fiddler in town came to court the widow. Since Aaron was dead, the fiddler wanted to marry her. What? Oh, the fiddler wanted to marry the widow. Okay. The two of them sat on one side of the fire, and Aaron sat on the other side, creaking and cracking. "How long do we have to put up with this dead corpse?" the widow asked. "Something must be done," the fiddler said. "Isn't this very jolly?" Aaron said. "Let's dance." The fiddler got out his fiddle and began to play. Aaron stretched himself, shook up, and got up, took a step or two, and began to dance, with his old bolts rattling and his yellow teeth snapping, and his bald head wagging, his arms flip-flopping, and around he went. This is kind of boring. With his long legs clicking and his knee bones knocking, he skipped and pranced around the room. How that dead man danced, but pretty soon a bone worked loose and fell to the floor. "Look at that," said the fiddler. "Play faster," said the widow. The fiddler played faster. Crickety-crackety, down and back. The dead man went hopping, and his dry bones began dropping. This way, that way, the pieces kept popping. "Play, man, play!" cried the widow. Fiddler, fiddle, and the dead Aaron danced. Then the Aaron fell apart, collapsed in a pile of bones, all except his bald head bone that grinned at the fiddler, cracked its teeth, and began dancing. "Look that!" groaned the fiddler. "Play louder!" cried the widow. "Ho, ho!" said the head bone. "Ain't we having fun?" The fiddler couldn't stand it. "Widow," he said, "I'm going home," and he never came back. The family gathered up Aaron's bones and put him back in his coffin. They mixed him up so he couldn't fit them together. After that, Aaron stayed in his grave, but the widow never did get married again. Aaron had seen to that. I don't get it, but yeah, Aaron had seen to that. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Well, this is the second to last chapter. We're almost done! But then I have more scary stories to tell in the dark, so we're not done. But, number 3. No, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4. Wait till Martin comes. An old man was out for a walk. When a storm came up, he looked for a place to take shelter. Soon he came to an old house. He ran up the porch and knocked on the door, but nobody answered. By now, rain was pouring down. The thunder was booming and lightning was flashing. So he tried the door. When he found it, it was unlocked. He went and tried. Except for a pile of wooden boxes, the house was empty. He broke up some of the boxes and made a fire with them. Then he sat down in the front of the fire and dried himself. It was so warm and cozy that he fell asleep. When he woke up, a black cat was sitting near the fire. He stared at him for a while, didn't purr. That's a nice cat, he thought, and he dozed off again. When he opened his eyes, there was a second cat in the room, but not one was as big as a wolf. It looked at him very closely and it said, "Shall we do it now?" "No," said the other cat. "Wait until Martin comes." "I must be dreaming," thought the old man. He closed his eyes again. Then he took another look. But now there was a third cat in the room. This one was as big as a tiger. It looked at the old man over and it asked, "Shall we do it now?" "No," said the others. "Let's wait until Martin comes." The old man jumped out the window and started running. "When Martin comes, you tell him I couldn't wait," he called. That's kind of funny. Oh, the last one. Number 5, the ghost with the bloody fingers. A businessman arrived at a hotel late one night and asked for a room. The room clerk told him the hotel was filled up. "There is one empty room," he said, "but we don't rent, 'cause that one's haunted." "I'll take it," said the businessman. "I don't believe in ghosts." The man went up to the room. "No, that's out of bed. Don't do that." He unpacked his things and he went to bed. As soon as he did, a ghost came out of the closet. His fingers were bleeding. He was moaning, "Bloody fingers, bloody fingers." No, like bloody fingers, bloody fingers. When the man saw the ghost, he grabbed his things and he ran. The next night, a woman arrived very late. Again, all the rooms were taken except the haunted room. "I'll sleep there," she said. "I'm not afraid of ghosts." As soon as she got into the bed, the ghost came out of the closet. Its fingers were still bleeding. It was moaning, "Bloody fingers, bloody fingers." And the woman took one look and ran. A week later, another guest arrived very late. He also took the haunted room. After he unpacked, he got out his guitar and he began to play. So the ghost appeared before its fingers were bleeding. And it was moaning, "Bloody fingers, bloody fingers." The man paid no attention. He just kept strumming his guitars, but the ghost kept moaning, and his fingers kept bleeding. Finally, the guitar player looked up. "Cool it, man," he said. "Get yourself a Band-Aid." That guy's a dummy. But, oh my gosh. We just finished my first full audiobook that wasn't like a picture book like the Christmas one. Woo-wee! Well, that was Blue Man Productions doing Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. This was by Alvin Schwartz, so collected by Alvin Schwartz. Yeah. So, bye. I will make a video tomorrow, and bye for now. Boom.